Chad,
What's up, dude?
how are you, sir?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I am good. I'm good.
I just shut down. I just shut down for the evening. Ran the last kid out of the weight room and said, "Time to go home." Did
Nice,
that.
nice, nice. Yeah, look at that one.
I
I,
love it, man.
I,
I
I
love it.
figure, I figure that's appropriate for
No,
for
totally.
probably
This
what
is
we're going to talk about.
this is the place to let it fly. This is the
Oh
place to let
gosh,
it fly.
I
You got a
mean,
Never Bunt T-shirt on. Amazing.
oh yeah, man, I'm coming out guns blazing. Like
We can
we're
talk
just,
about. I got all night. It's 4:30 your time, and I
yeah,
got
yeah,
all night. So
yeah. I
whatever.
probably, I probably have a hard out at 6:30,
Okay,
because we're going to go
you're
to
good
dinner with my wife's family,
for sure.
but yeah, that's probably the point where this episode of like Devin and Chad try to find a thing to disagree about is probably runs its course anyways.
Here's the thing. This is not necessarily a. I have. If you've listened to the podcast,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've had nothing. I have nothing written down. I don't write anything down. I
yeah,
like Joe Rogan's style, where if you and I were talking, just letting people listen as if you and I were talking. Like
yeah.
I
You
don't.
just
I
you
don't.
just
I'm
talk.
not. I'm not an interviewer. Like that
Yeah,
may shock you. I'm just a guy that likes to talk to smarter people than him because I have to,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm academic. I've been academically challenged my whole life, but
yeah.
I recognize people that have good ideas and I talk to them.
Yeah, and like I too am that guy. I like essentially like I mean, especially as it comes to like youth baseball. The last 12 years of my life is
Yep.
essentially just being like, I mean, literally, paying attention to guys like you and other guys that like have more experience or different experience or higher level experience, and just trying to take from that and like distill into what's ideal. I mean,
Right.
do we want to just start? Are we started? Are we good?
We're good, man.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
So,
We
yeah,
just
man.
go. We talk
Good.
about energy drinks. Are you an energy drink guy?
I am a two coffee in the morning, and then
Yep.
I crush water for the rest of the day. Up and
Black
well,
coffee?
yeah, typically. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll throw a little bit of sugar-free vanilla in there if I'm feeling a little saucy, but
for sure. For sure.
coffee and creatine is my morning.
Okay. Okay, I go with that. Coffee's usually my go-to, and then the White Monster goat. Coffee's my first thing. I don't even know if it works at this point. My caffeine tolerance is so high
Yeah.
that like I think I just drink it because that's what I do in the morning.
Yeah, that's the thing that I like have tried to avoid because I have a real hard time shutting down in the evenings anyways.
Right.
And I find, if like my coffee consumption goes to like cup number three, which then begets cup number four, which then begets like a bang at the facility,
There you
I'll
go.
be up until like, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I try to wake up early the next day to get a hold of like, and it's just like, ah man, we're working dumber, not smarter.
It's hard to have bang around and not drink it though. Like if it's sitting
Oh,
there,
tell me about it.
I'm probably drinking it. Like I try not to do the energy drink reviews, and when I'm at home, I usually put these up and don't go look at them again. But this one has been sitting here all day. I did this one today, and I've just been drinking on it after I did the review.
Yeah,
Somebody was like, "You're gonna die," and I'm like, "Well, I don't typically drink all of the drink. I just do
yeah,
I
yeah,
do the thing. And does this taste good or not? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't know
and
if I like it or not, but
I mean,
it's fun.
now that they stuff those things with like creatine and a bunch of, and sometimes creatine and protein, I'll be like,
Yep.
oh well, this can't hurt. And then you're on to like drink number three, and you're just like, because I didn't drink coffee until my wife and I had our first child. Until we had our daughter, I
Same.
I didn't drink
Absolutely the
coffee at
same.
all. And
Yep.
then she was born in December of '06, and by like March or April of the following year, I was going to work with like a liter of coffee, like
Yeah. Yep.
prepared,
Yep.
just to try to get through it. And then
Yep.
15 years later, here we are.
I was. It's funny. My daughter. I was the same. I was the same. I never had coffee, energy drinks, anything until my daughter was born. She'll be 10 this year. At the same time, I am getting out of high school, coaching in high school. I am reluctantly getting into private facility business while helping my dad at a sale at the sporting goods store we own,
Yeah.
and father a child. So my schedule's flexible. My wife's having to go to work, so I'm getting up at night.
Yeah.
And I'm going in this coffee shop in the morning to get I don't love breakfast, and I was getting like a breakfast smoothie, like protein shake from this place. And I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep like every day. And I'm trying to do all of this at the same time. New dad, business, new. And I'm like, I can't function this way. I'm going to have to do something. He said, well, I used to fish with this old guy. And he said, if you're ever going to start drinking coffee, just drink it black. I'm like, let's do it. And so he's like, you sure? I'm like, if I'm going to commit something, I'm going to do it. And so we did it. And I've drank black coffee from that day every day since then. And that was that'll be 10 years ago. In November. My daughter was born in November. So
and it's way cheaper than the fancy drinks anyways.
100%. Like I started this, I think it was probably a month into this. I was like, I think I was drinking Red Bull, which is Kyle's drink of choice. We've gone back and forth about this on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is way too expensive. Way too expensive. Like I am now a small business entrepreneur in this little tiny place in Virginia.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to make it or not. But I don't fail. So I'm going to do what it takes. And then it became coffee because it was much cheaper and much easier. Just black coffee. Just give me the black coffee. Just give me the mud in the cup and let's go. Like I don't need the rest of the stuff. Just the mud and go.
Yeah. You drip coffee never hurt anybody. That wasn't just soft.
Yeah, for sure. No. So we could probably talk about baseball, I suppose.
Sure.
Although, yeah. I've been railing. It's Blocktober. So I've been
Blocktober, baby.
I've been out there doing work for people, myself and for people.
How big is your block list right now?
It's been extravagant here in the last. Anybody that responds dumbly to my T-posts, it's immediate. Like if you say something stupid, I don't even interact. Sometimes I'll interact and give them a chance, and if it just continues to be stupid, it's just block. Like I can't do this.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? That like I mean, in to a degree, like this is a point that Joe Rogan has actually made. This isn't some original thought of mine, but like the one thing that internet has brought us is this ability to like we interact with each other in ways that permit us to behave in a way that we wouldn't permit in real life.
Right.
In real life, meaning that like we're in the same physical space. And it's always weird to me when, I think people like you, and man, I try to do the same thing. Like if I put something out on Twitter, I'm trying to share an idea or a concept.
Yep.
And I don't think that it is like bestowed upon me from on high, right? This is just the stuff that I believe in right now as best as I understand it, right? As best I understand the task and the problem and the potential solutions. This is the way that I have my head screwed on right now. And then some people comment and they ask questions, and I think that type of stuff is really, really interesting because you get to kind of confront like, well, I come to this problem from this perspective, you come to it from yours, and you get to see kind of environmentally how we ended up at a different place. And sometimes maybe there's a middle point, and sometimes maybe there isn't, but there doesn't necessarily need to necessarily be like animosity. Like we're not in a conflict. But then you have other people who like straight out of the gate, like they're firing with both barrels, and then they get blocked, and then it turns into like, oh, Deven just blocks people that don't agree with him, and it's like, no, man, I put something up that was like kind of vanilla, and you attacked me as a person or my child as a person,
right?
So you got blocked. Like what?
Yep.
It's a weird thing, and I think it just it makes me curious about other like functions of our society of like how people don't realize that like, man, that mechanism of behavior doesn't play. You can't do that in real life, and you don't.
Like you don't. You probably don't.
Nobody does. I mean, the majority of us. I think the majority of us are just normal people trying to do our best to figure this whole thing out. Like I know that there are people who, think very poorly of me and some of the approaches that I have to youth baseball and player development and all this other stuff, which we can get into. But the thing that I always try to stay cognizant of is that like those people and me, we have the same intention. I really think the majority
Yep.
of us have the exact same intention. We are in alignment in the fact that we want the best for our kids. Now some of us just want the best for their kids because like it is you want to see like another person have like an athletic life that is resolved as best as possible. You
Yep.
want to see them get the most mileage possible. Some of
Yep.
them it's a they want the best for their kids because it's an ego thing. And it's that
There's that.
thing
Yep.
it's that thing where man now we're not able to evaluate this stuff in really clear terms because the fear that I have of being wrong is getting in the way of me listening and seeing another person's perspective. And I don't mean to say that to suggest that like I've never been guilty of that because I'm sure I have, and I'm sure we all are. But shit, sorry, shoot.
You you can cuss.
All right, well,
I had Kirsten Cox on the podcast. It's not come out to the public yet. I don't know if you
Coxie
know her
sends
at
it,
all.
dude. Coxie sends it.
She
She's
is
awesome.
you talk about double barrels.
Yeah, yeah.
She comes blazing.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
awesome.
I love her stuff. She came out to Driveline. We got a chance to chat a few years ago, and I really
Yep.
really love her. Anyways, man, it's just I don't even remember what you're saying. Like, I just think that there's a way that like you can behave on the internet and specifically on Twitter because like
Yep.
that seems like that's where like 50% of all our baseball conversations take place now. You can do that in a way where you can disagree with someone or you can ask a question and not be a dick about it.
Right. The
And if
problem that
you
I have is you can question what I'm doing, but you have to have a set of principles at which you're operating from. And when you tell me that the T is a good idea because Albert Pujols did it, is not a set of principles at all. It's
right.
not. It's not. It's not a good reason to do anything.
Oh, the T.
We can get into the T, which you've probably read my rants about the T, and I think you probably feel the same way. And it's the T, but it's a greater question of why, as people, we don't understand the exchange. Everything comes with an exchange of something. Like,
Yep.
right? Why can we not understand that if I can kill two birds with one stone in time, then I should? And I just had a conversation in the last hour with a guy that said if it's entirely possible to make players move better while hitting better, improving the skill of hitting, which
Yeah.
requires the pitch to be moving,
Right.
then why use the T at all? The only reason you do it is because you feel like there's not another way. And
Right.
there's totally another way. But
Right.
what I really want to get at is the exchange of the value of time. Why do people have such a hard time with that?
I think the exchange, I mean, framing in that way is a really, really interesting way to kind of think about it, right? Because uh you're right. The tea aficionados, uh,
Yeah.
it's just like I think the if I had to if I had to surmise, and I'm trying to do this justice, right? I think that a lot of those people believe that if you build a skill in that environment and you can like pattern uh, ideal or perfect or
Yep.
whatever movement in that environment that somehow translates to the competition arena and we're just like neglecting uh, to like really let it sink in how messy competition is
Right.
and it's messy at the high level. So how much messier is it at the youth level, right? Like,
Right.
man, I know that, there was I want to say it was like in 17 or 18, I can't remember who won the Cy that year, if was it Scherzer? Anyways, whoever it was,
Yeah. Probably
you know, that
some combination of Scherzer, Kershaw, or
yeah, yeah, one
something.
or it was I think it was 17. So whoever won in 17, or maybe it was Verlander, I don't know. Anyways, whoever it was a dude. But somebody put up that it was like, there that individual's average miss was like 12, it was more than 12 inches.
Right.
Now, simultaneous to that, since that time, like since that one little morsel of information came out, how many bullpens and how many practice sessions have there been with like prepubescent children where some parent or coach is like
Yep.
yelling at a kid to hit their spots?
Yep.
Like, I mean, look, man, if Scherzer is missing by a foot,
Yep.
Jane, preteen Jane or preteen Tommy, should probably not be expected to kind of execute in the
Right.
same condition. That just doesn't make sense.
Right. And that goes to the other human behavior. And I ask this question a lot of this podcast. It's like, why in this field do we have such a hard time determining what the important pieces that we should focus on are? And it's like, why? It's like, it's like, and I will be the devil's advocate because I just thought about this. I have asked this question of myself and maybe of someone else. If I can get a kid, this is the command guy, right?
Sure.
If I can get a kid to throw the ball in the strike zone consistently, maybe at a lower effort level, maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Then they have more confidence to let it loose and throw it in the strike zone. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not saying, but it's like, then there goes to the time value exchange. It's like, okay, that may be true, but we're not spending the allotted right amount of time on the most important thing,
right?
Which is we spent X amount of time to try to get him to throw it in the strike zone, and then we decided, but is his confidence higher? Maybe it is. And again, you can talk about this because you do a very good job of this. It's like what we incentivize.
Sure.
It's like what we incentivize along the way of trying to throw the ball hard, but maybe throwing it halfway up the backstop.
Sure.
It's like, what are we incentivizing?
Yeah, and like, I mean, there's also the other side of it, which is that if you're throwing strikes, and by throwing strikes, meaning you're actually putting something in a very carefully defined strike zone relative
Right.
to the hitter, that also means that it is more likely to be a hittable pitch for that hitter unless you add or subtract velocity or move in a location.
Yep.
So at the youth level, we end up with this really perverted incentive structure where it's youth competitors, right? And they don't know everything about the game. And even if they do know everything about the game, they're kind of just like fundamentally unable to execute everything at like a very high level in the game because they're children. Kids aren't small
Yes.
adults.
They
So
can't. Yeah.
and it plays out in like really really fundamental ways, right? If you don't have a really good catcher and you have kids that are allowed to lead off and steal bases at like the 12 and under level, then a walk is a triple. Like
Yep.
it just is, because most youth catching is like very underdeveloped. It's a fairly difficult task already. Not a lot of kids seem to like predisposed to want to jump to that. They get undertrained and then you can't control the run game, and now a walk is a triple. Um, so this environment is not reflective of like the environment we're moving towards, right? We know that like to whatever degree that youth baseball suffers those flaws, those things decrease in quantity
Right.
over time. But you can have an incentivized approach right now on the youth side to just go, hey, just throw strikes, because you're never going to get penalized, right? Most youth
Yep.
teams aren't stacked 1 to 9 or 1 to 12 or 1 to 15 with little dudes or little dudettes that are really going to punish you if you leave something in the zone. Um, so it works up until the point that it doesn't, right?
Right.
Like, and you have, parents like us, moms and dads, who, again, we want the best for our kid. We want
Yep.
that kid to have success in competition because we think that it's teaching them something beneficial, which is probably true. We also want to protect our own ego because it's a miniature version of us.
Right. No, I'm with you.
So the emotional like sensitivity is really really high there. So we focus on youth throwing mechanics with the same children who like can't write their name the same way five
Yep.
times in a row. and
Yep.
and that's yes, so that's a fine motor control task, but it's a fine motor control task that involves my hand. It is not a proximal to distal, small segment to
Right.
big segment to small segment, full body action
Just
like
dynamic,
throwing.
explosive. Yeah.
Like the two things don't map. Um, in the same, to a degree, the same thing is true on the other side when hitting, right? I think Caleb, when he was on your show, might have talked about this in an episode that I listened to, right? Like, I would rather have a kid take a high intent swing and maybe swing and miss,
or fall down doing it.
and or fall down, right?
Yep.
Because I just believe that over time, that kid is going to get better about solving that task with that level of intent, and that's the thing that has the most value long term, right?
Right.
So to your initial question, I think the problem of going like, well, we're going to focus on mechanics now, and the velocity is going to come. Maybe. I mean, maybe because
Yeah,
you don't know that because there's plenty of
right.
16-year-olds that throw like mid fives and they're
Yep,
still waiting for the velocity to come, and those kids get
yep,
run out of the game because they're not competitive. And then there's just the other thing, which is just like from a motor problem perspective, right? The movement solutions you have available to yourself at like 50% RPE are like fairly wide.
yep,
Um, so to a degree, if you understand that that's a landscape, and then you overemphasize to a kid the thing that matters most is accuracy, they're going to move in a way to solve that problem.
yep.
But then you pattern those movement solutions, and then you're like, oh, the velocity is going to come, or oh, you're going to be able to learn to throw hard later. Well, like I don't know how to throw hard because of what I've been
Right.
doing is I'm not moving in a way, and I'm not like ingraining this like neural pattern that is involving like output and coordination, which ideally resolves itself in accuracy. Those two things are very different. Like why if I'm raising chickens, I don't walk out to the cage someday and expect to see a frog. Like
Right,
why would
right.
I expect that? It's two different things.
Yeah. No, totally, totally. I had a, I had a, I, and you could talk about two. This is going back to the T, but it in a watered down practice setting, you could be throwing two. What kind of psychological expectations are we putting on young people by by watering the skill down so much? This is something that I see all the time. They've been conditioned, and the skill has been watered down so much that all of a sudden they get into this growth fixed mindset thing. They get into this very fixed expectation of,
Yeah.
if I don't hit the ball every time squarely because that's what I've done on the tee, then now I suck. And if I
Yeah.
suck, then I'm not. Then I'm just going to quit. Because I was hitting on the tee and I was doing fine. And
Right.
it's like I can speak on my own kids. I won't speak on other people's kids. I know mine. It's like I don't even want to give them the expectation that this is the result that you can expect as a hitter at
Yeah.
all. Like you can never expect this to be this successful
Yeah.
ever. I
Yeah.
think people sell it and package it in a way, and throwing strikes is the same way. It's like maybe we design the task where, and we do this with people. I do this with my daughter. My daughter's softball pitching, right?
Mm-hmm.
I start her at 32 feet. We progress
Yep.
back to 35 feet. We throw at 38 feet. We throw back at 35 feet in hopes that, her feel for the strike zone
Yep.
around trying to throw the ball hard as she can. We don't want to make it so difficult she's never successful. Trevor said that in Trevor's latest vlog.
Yeah.
For however you feel about Trevor, fine. His
Yeah.
vlogs are amazing information.
Yeah.
And in his latest vlog, he talked about, he put the medicine balls up there and was throwing at the medicine balls, and he said, I was talking to somebody and they said I needed to be 60% successful in engagement to stay mentally engaged with the task and practice. So we're making the targets bigger.
Yep.
You don't have to scale the task all the way down to a point where young people get these, because they're not small adults. They don't have any ability to think abstractly at all. None whatsoever. Yeah. They get these expectations of like, this is what it's going to be. And it's like, no, but you do have to make it successful. And this is the thing I argue about with people on Twitter. Front toss is a perfectly acceptable scaled down activity.
I've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
I know.
And you can increase the difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is have you follow Robert Riggins?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Robert is amazing. I talked to Robert like a couple weeks ago. It's not out on the podcast yet. Put it in LPD Plus. It's available for people early, and then it'll come out on podcast. I told him, I said, Robert, your eye patch ideas and Synaptic strobe ideas and earplug ideas are.
Yeah, man.
I bought eye patches that day. Like my daughter, I'm putting them on my daughter now. My son is just 7. So again, we're talking about scaling the activity according to difficulty. He doesn't. The problem of hitting the ball consistently with me throwing it at 15 feet or me throwing it at 35 feet at speed or whatever is hard enough for him.
Yep.
So don't scale it up. But we don't scale it all the way down to where it's sitting still.
Yeah, and
That's a
like,
lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack. It just, you could talk about the psychological expectation of just safe success and all of that.
I mean, kids, it's tough when you have like we're all adults, right? Like
Right.
we
Kind of. I'm
to
big.
kind of, to one degree
Right.
or another, we have like some amount of solidity in the way that we understand ourselves, what we're capable of, what we're not. I think a lot of times what we under index for is to how much of a large degree kids don't have that, right? Like they're just still like very much they'll take any and all stimulus that they get, good and bad.
Yeah.
Uh, and you're exactly right in that they really struggle with this abstract thought thing, which means in a functional sense that like they have a really hard time separating their definition of themselves from the outputs or the outcomes that they produce. This is literally a conversation that I had with my son this week, like about school, not about baseball, about
Yep.
school, because he had like all A's and B's, and he had one class he had like a C or a D in, and it was just a matter of like helping him understand because he was down in the dumps about it. He felt shitty about it. And I was just like, look,
Right.
man, um, because for him, because he's at that stage yet where Jean Piaget says that kids start to learn uh, and can like deploy concepts around abstract thought once they get to the formal operational stage, which starts at 13. My kid's 12. He's getting there, right? But it's still it's a thing for us to reinforce to be like, look, man, there's you and there's what you produce as a student. If you produce something that is like lower quality or graded lower as a student, and that's bad, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Like
Right.
but a lot of times that's what they do, and you see the same thing in sports, right? Is it's like kid comes in the cage off of a tee, and like the ball hasn't been moving, so it's just like laser, 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 and they go in a tee or they go in a machine or even I've seen this with like front toss sometimes. They get into that environment and it's not even difficult and they're getting their doors blown off and they're like looking around for
Yep.
someone to save them or they're looking
Yep.
for someone to like to fix them or to like it's just brutal, man. And I'm typically the one where it's like I don't coach any of our academy teams, so when I'm in the facility I just like walk around and I rove. Every time I see a kid take like a gigantic hack and swing and miss, I'm like, good swing, it's right there.
Yeah.
Because what else am I going to tell him? Like in that
Yep.
particular moment, in that training environment, I can do kind of the typical thing. Hey, you're early, you're late. Um, but just because I'm making a determination that I think that kid is late, I don't know that their cognitive process is late.
Right. And it
I don't
goes
know if
to,
it's early. Like I don't know what's going on there, right? So like we had, real
sure.
quick, I had this kid come out. He's on our I think he's on one of our 12U teams. Um, we were doing short box machine, uh, which is pretty hard, for in
Tough.
terms of like
Yep.
task complexity for a 12-year-old. Um, and he's one of these kids where like he's regrip, 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 and then goes. Sometimes he would be regrip and like get to here and then go, and then sometimes his regrip would be here. So then the wrist position is compromised at
Right.
contact because that's naturally what's going to happen because the hands weren't set the correct way. And it's really hard to find a barrel there because now all of a sudden, like this part, the hand part of the swing, in terms of where we're delivering the barrel,
Right.
is not where we expect it to be. So, and he's still doing his best. And it was like good contact, swing and miss, crap contact, good contact, bad contact, swing and a miss. And he walked out of the cage. And when he was having some of those swings and misses, like, hey man, good swing, it's right there, right? I'm not every single swing trying to coach him up, but once or twice. He comes out of the cage, and I was like, okay, great job, right? Because the first thing I need to lead with is a positive, constructive comment, because I'm trying to do like the
Yeah.
positive coaching alliance thing, right? The positivity sandwich. I'm going to start with the positive. Hey, great high intent swings in there, man. You're really trying to get after it. Good job. 3 compliments, back to back to back. One thing to think about, Tommy, is I know that you like to regrip there, but it's really important that like we try to get this set before we go to fire. So you just need, if that's a thing you need to do, we need to kind of have the timing and the rhythm of it. It needs to be completed before we start to go into like our load phase, right? Um, and he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "All right, man. Hey, and some of those balls you were late, right? So you were kind of making like bad contact, just kind of oppo weak side, little worm burners or whatever." And I asked him, I was like, "Where are you trying to hit the ball to in the cage?" And he was like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, so one thing to think about is if you find yourself kind of making poor contact on the oppo side, maybe we're going to try to pick a target that's on the pull side and just try to find a way to get on time there, right? Like I'm trying to get him to understand this idea that like I don't know what his cognitive and his mental process is. I don't know where he's picking up the ball, and I mean, I suppose I could try to get in the weeds of teaching that stuff, but he's 12.
Right.
So what I do
Put him
want
on
to do is,
put an eye patch on him. That would
right,
be my
well, right,
amazing.
right.
Right.
In the
Get good.
moment,
Yeah.
what I was just like, it's like, hey man, we can start to think about where we're trying to hit the ball because to a degree, that's going to influence our timing. So if you find yourself being late, let's maybe change our target to try to maybe hit the ball in a location where it might be more likely that we are early. And I was like, you can do the other thing too. If you find yourself hitting like pull side tanks and it's everything is like 20 feet foul of the third base side for a right-handed hitter, hey,
Yep.
maybe we're thinking about going over the second baseman's head now, right? Maybe
Yep.
that is the time where we start thinking about I'm not trying to shoot it through the four hole. I'm still trying to hit a liner into the
Right.
green over the
Yep.
second baseman. But I'm just like, hey, there's some different ways that you can change your target in the cage. And even if that kid only made contact with like two or three balls in those 9 pitches or whatever it was, right? If he walks out of that and has a better understanding of what he did right, when he did get
Yep.
good positive contact, and also a new idea about how he can change his own attention in the cage, which is probably going to modify his approach to timing, that that 1 for 9 or 2 for 9 or whatever it is still incredibly valuable and much more so in a different way, in a more applicable way than if you sat on the tee for an hour because
Yeah.
you're never learning those lessons.
No, and I mean, again, if you're not, and this is going back to the conversation when I had with Robert. The perceptual information processing skill bucket is something. Till the day I talked with Robert, I said, Robert, it's not real often I get my mind blown in this industry, but today my mind is blown, and I realized today that I have done a poor job
Yeah,
with coaching some players, and we're going to change that today. We're
yeah,
going to change that right now. And if you're not if you're not combining the perceptual information and the tracking and the timing, then you're not really hitting. And I've used this example on Twitter to try to explain to somebody. My 2 children, I can speak to them because I
hmm
I I control the whole deal.
yep,
They've not hit. They're yet to hit a ball off the tee. My son is 7. My daughter is 9. They haven't hit a ball off the tee yet. If tracking and timing is a huge skill in hitting, it is. Like everybody, I think everybody agrees on that. I
yeah,
think if one kid spends 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week on the tee, that's 50 minutes a week that he's not tracking and timing balls.
yeah,
You extrapolate that out over a year, it's 2,600 hours. If they play 15 years, that's 40,000 minutes. That's 40,000 minutes that they did not track or time a ball. My children are now 40,000 minutes ahead, better at
yeah.
tracking and timing balls than that kid. How in the world is he going to catch up with them on that skill? It's like you don't think about it in terms of this big, broad picture of like you get good at what you practice at. So if you spend 40,000 minutes, which I'm not good at, like it's a lot of hours, right?
Right,
If you
right,
spend that many hours doing something, you're going to get good at that, but you're neglecting like maybe the most important skill, because you can argue that the mechanics of your swing and the shape of your swing and everything that goes into your swing, minus the intention and the speed of it, are shaped by the perception of the ball and your brain making anticipations and predictions about where it's going to end up. And you have done You're 40,000 minutes behind my kids on that. Like, how do you
So
make that time up? And you are running an organization. So now you have to explain that to people about, like, why are we not doing teamwork? And you may do teamwork, I don't know, but it's like, why are we not doing teamwork? It's like, well, that's an interesting question. We would like to focus on the skill of hitting more.
yeah, we'll get back to academy and T work. But I think the one thing that I've seen that was kind of funny in the playoffs over the last like week and a half is God, who was it? Somebody legged out just like a worm burner to third base for a single, and
Yeah.
people were kind of like,
Chris
uh,
Bryant.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it was a Chris
Yep.
Bryant. And everybody was like, this is why it's the immediate castigation of modern baseball. Well, this is why
Yeah.
contact is important. Yada yada yada. And it's funny because like that message kind of got picked up by a lot of people who are like very big on like mechanics, T
Yep.
work, etc. And it's like, yeah, what you're failing to understand is that like that contact was generated by a movement solution and a cognitive solution and a
Yep.
perceptual solution, right?
Yep.
And like this thing that you advocate for all the time, kids nowadays don't spend enough time on the tee, blah blah blah. They need to work on their swing mechanics. Uh, you're literally neglecting that when you choose to do that. And I have a variety of Kyle Bodie tweets like saved in my phone as
I love
screenshots,
it. You
but the
can
one
share as many as you want.
but the one that like rattles around my brain a lot is just like, man, you are what you do. And if what you
Yep.
do is you are a hitter who spends an inordinate amount of time on the tee, then
Not
you're
even
going
inordinate.
to look
The example that I used was 10
for
minutes.
sure. Right,
Like,
right,
it's not a lot, but it
right,
is something. And it's
right,
like, you extrapolate this out over time, and you have gotten way behind.
right. Because it's not only that you are what you do, but you also are what you don't do. Um, and this is
Yep.
why I,
That's
I
never
mean
bunt.
this is the majority of kind of the consideration around my pushback against bunting, specifically at the youth side, because again, I've had people that will try to devil's advocate me and be like, hey, well, don't you have 5 minutes to do that? Yeah, I do. But I'm not going to spend it that way. Well, that those 5 minutes, you're learning to like it's a spatial awareness thing, right? It's a and
Yep.
but yeah, but again, if I'm raising chickens, I would not go out to the chicken coop and expect to see a frog. Bunting a
Yep.
ball is not swinging the bat. It's not the
Nope.
same task. So you can't tell me that all this bunt work that we're going to do is somehow going to translate into like equal to or better than performance gains if we had just swung the fucking bat.
Right.
Like and
Exactly.
and and again, I will acknowledge the fact that like the considerations that I have for my academy are very much influential on my perspective. Our approach is long-term athletic development. We're not trying to maximize for short-term wins because we're not trying to maximize short-term wins. I don't need to pursue those pathways that raise that likelihood right now because I don't give a shit. If I did, then yes, I would have to bunt because I'm probably losing like, I don't know, I'm leaving like 1 to 4 runs on the table every game by not
For
pursuing that
sure.
strategy
No doubt.
because it is absolutely optimal, specifically in a youth baseball environment. I get it, man. The issue is just again like the point that you made. It's not just about that 5 minutes of practice. It's 5 minutes at 3 practices a week. That's
Yep.
15 minutes.
Yep.
I practice four weeks a month. Now it's an hour. I got a
Yep.
5 month off season.
Yep.
Now it's 5 hours, and it just it scales the wrong way. So
Yep. For sure. But it
I
goes again. We're talking about there's a few concepts, and Twitter like illuminates these things in grown-ups and adults too. You guys don't have. You guys are not children. You're adults, and you don't have the ability to think abstractly either.
correct.
And so it goes to like the construct. We can talk about this in the youth side and the adult side. It's like the construct of school, where you're not really given the opportunity to think abstractly, or you're not allowed the opportunity to fail. You used the example a minute ago about when kids swing and miss in the cage, and they
Yep.
look around. It's like they're looking for the gatekeeper to help them. And it's like, I don't want my kids or someone else's kids, that the people that pay me for my services to help their kid be a better player in the game, to like to like to always look for an authoritative figure for help. It's like,
Right.
you don't really need help. You can do it. You got it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, it's
Yeah.
fine. The kid that's jiggling his hands. Again, my mind always goes to like, and this is something we've been testing in the gym, and it's like messing with grip
Hmm.
diameter, like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
their
yeah,
hands interact with the bat.
yeah,
Like with changing a grip diameter, change the way that kid maybe interacts with the bat and gets it to calm down. Like, what's the behavior I can get out of that?
yeah.
My mind is always running towards like, how can I say less?
Yep.
How can I say less? And again, we always have the computers running. We're always collecting information. And this goes to exactly what you all do. And it's like, the computers aren't like, I tell this story on the podcast. I fell off a ladder and hurt my knee in this building last November, wrecked my knee. I was on
Oh,
crutches for 8 weeks. It was so bad. I think I tore my ACL,
yeah.
MCL. I never went to the doctor because it was like right at Thanksgiving. I didn't really want to go to the doctor and have to get COVID tested. And if I get COVID, then my family quarantines for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I told my wife, I said, give me till January. Well, like March rolls around and I get on a scale and I have put on like 25 pounds somehow
Yeah.
that I've weighed more than I knew because I wasn't walking, I wasn't throwing, I
Yeah.
wasn't exercising. I went and bought a Fitbit to figure out, okay, I'm going to have to purposefully lose weight like for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I'm like, the Fitbit that I wear on my wrist does not lose weight. This didn't lose weight.
Right.
Like, this just gives me information on the decisions I can make to lose weight.
Right.
Like, computers and technology are the same thing, but it goes back to the original question. It's like, why do people have such a hard time thinking abstractly? It's like, this isn't
Yeah.
that hard. I'm not smart, guys. I am not smart. I didn't do good on the SAT. I didn't make great grades in high. I didn't make great grades because I didn't try and I wasn't that interested, which goes back to the construct of school. But I am
Sure.
not smart. Like, and you can do this. Like, you're probably smarter than me. You probably made better grades than me. This isn't, but I have a high ability to think abstractly. So why do people struggle so much with abstract ideas? Do they start at the youth level? Do you think we foster this environment at the youth level? It's starting in baseball
I
or
mean,
school?
if you want my like full on hippy dippy perspective on this,
Sure. Yeah.
youth baseball is a really weird environment because it's predominantly the adults in the equation are most of them are parents, right? I mean, I think
Right.
most.
And they're
Uh,
really not qualified for the job. I mean, really. Not
right.
not saying I am. I'm not saying that. But what I'm
Right.
saying is like, none of us are very educated in youth psychology and
Yeah, well,
adolescent development
it,
and all these things.
and that's the other thing is that I think we don't even know what good qualifications for that job even look like, right? Because you have to then answer into this other question of like, well, what's most important? Is it most important that I played high level baseball and then I can well, so that's one thing.
That's
The
such an
next
irony
thing,
because I did. It's so
right?
funny. I'm like on the island of misfit toys. Like, I played high level baseball, but I believe in all these technology and these abstract ideas. Like, I may be like, I don't know. I don't know that there's anybody else on my island. I look around and it's like, there's no one out here.
Yeah, and it's like, you have parents who the majority of us don't have that experience, right? So then we gravitate to a resource. It's a trusted resource of one or the other, right? It's either a local
Right.
guy or a girl who they played high level and they communicate this stuff, and then we just regurgitate it, or you find somebody else, right? And that's what the internet has,
Yep.
brought to us nowadays. Is that like, shit, probably 10 years ago, I could find Chad Longworth and be
Yep.
like, oh shit, this is tight. This guy's getting after it. He's training guys, and I'm super into this. And for the last 10 years, I've been able to get like a little bit of a pipeline into the way that you think about things, and it's been incredibly beneficial to the way that I think about things. But most of us parents, I don't think go as far down the rabbit hole as some of us have, where it's like, well, now youth baseball is just my life. Like that's just
Right.
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 So, for most parents, it's a thing that they do during a period of time, and then at the up level of things, it's like you have parents that run kind of select teams of travel ball programs, um, and they generally have their children in the mix some way, shape, or form. Right. The thing that brings us to this action is that we have a child of our own that we're trying to teach the game to.
Right.
Because it's my own child, I have just like this way higher sensitivity towards what I think is just like what we interpret as fear, like and what we interpret as dangerous. And if you have this little version of you, you made a person, and now you
Yep.
get to see the little version of you, and you start to see that person. You're like, all right, well, how do I divert you around from this thing that I struggled with? And then I see this other obstacle that you're having, and I want to try to get you through that as well, right? It's all this like obstacle and struggle avoidance because we treat those things as dangerous. The problem is that like this is baseball.
Yep.
Like the fucking game doesn't work that way. Like we had our first team meetings at the academy a few weeks ago, and I was saying to one of our families, I was like, look, if we were running like if we were running a select basketball program, I would be like, hey, I would, we had like a little presentation about the goals for the program, et cetera, and I'd be like, hey, look, our goal is we're going to shoot 600 from the floor this year, and everybody like, all right, that might be hard, but we can do that.
Right.
you Nobody's going to do that in baseball. And if you are doing that in baseball, you are competing at a level that is way beneath you and you're not being adequately challenged, right? The task complexity of what we're trying to do just doesn't work that way. So we orient away from struggle, or we are drawn towards things that we perceive to be like solutions for struggle. I have to hammer mechanics because if I instill mechanics in my kid is going to be more likely to have success and they're less likely to struggle and fail.
Right. No, I'm with you. It's been really hard. Like I've talked myself back a time or two this year. This is the first year I've let my kids play club, select, travel sports. I've
Yeah.
been very reluctant to. I didn't want to be the guy because that would be an easy target. He makes them do this. Look at him. He's out here, and I don't coach their team. We're very fortunate in the people that we have that coach their team. It's a family. I've trained their oldest son. He is 15. They have a daughter who's my daughter's age. They have a son who's a younger son who's my son's age. They know where I'm coming from. They believe in what we do. We're very fortunate. I have had to talk myself back on my own kids. It's like, man, like be like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you've seen this work with hundreds of other people's kids.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna work with your kids, man, but just be patient with
Yeah.
it because my daughter, because in softball is very different here. In you go from coach pitch 8U to kid pitch 10U, and the
Yeah.
birthday cutoff is January 1. So if you're 11 on January 2, you play the whole year as a 10-year-old. And my
Yeah.
daughter's birthday is November, so now she's almost 8.
Yeah.
And it's like we can talk about the biological piece of this, but it's like we again, I just ask myself these abstract questions like, what do we need to do? What skills do we need to improve on? And the ones that we arrived at were timing, swing decision things that were from a
Sure.
live softball pitcher that she'd never seen before. So we start trying to solve that, which was a lot of time in the Oculus. I don't know if you guys are using the Oculus for those. People have differing opinions on VR, but I
Yeah.
found it very beneficial in young people for timing and swing decision purposes. We throw on the Oculus on her. She tracks balls. She actually swings. We don't do the hitting beta thing.
Yeah.
She actually swings. Like she has to make it. She has to be ready to swing every pitch, and she has to make a decision on the ball she's swinging at.
Yeah.
Now, anecdotally, I would tell you that I wouldn't tell you anecdotally. Her swing, her pitch recognition, and swing decisions have gotten better.
Yeah.
But it's like early on, I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
But I have a different perspective than most people have, and I totally get it. Like I totally get why people like mash the panic. They're mashing the panic button early. It's like they
Yeah.
can't hit the panic button hard enough. And I kind of wanted to get into that. You and I have talked privately about when you started the academy. I got in touch with you and we talked on the phone about some of the concerns that I just how do you think you're going to handle these things? And it looked like you had them early on. You guys weren't winning a lot.
Yeah. Oh, we
You're
didn't.
getting
We didn't win a lot.
you're getting beat, and I'm sure the parents are sitting over there like, what the world? But again, I think you do a great job of communicating these things. My son's team, 7, won like 3 games this spring. But I never again, it's what you incentivize. It was always after the game, man. Hey, man, it was
Yep.
awesome. You
Yep.
did
Yep.
great.
Yep.
You swung the bat hard, hustled, ran off, and you were a good teammate. That's why I do only small group sessions. I don't run an academy or anything like that. But I want to help bridge being a good teammate. Like I just don't want to do one-on-ones where it's the individual thing.
Yeah.
Bridging and being a good teammate is important to me. I want my kids to be good teammates, and that's something we talk about a lot. But even in winning 3 games, I look at his hit tracks data.
Mm-hmm.
He's 10% better in these key measurable categories. His interest was higher because he was playing. It's like we used the game as a platform for his development.
Yep.
I knew that, but was that something that I know that's probably how you run your academy. Was that something early on? I imagine it's smoothing out now.
Oh yeah, I mean, year 2 is already off to a phenomenal start. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like clapping myself on the back. It's just we're just at a very different place. We started an academy during a world like global pandemic.
Right, right.
We started an academy with like this 43,000 square foot facility that we got locked
Right.
out of for like 10 weeks in the
Yep.
middle of our off season. Um, and you know we also started a brand new thing. And sometimes when you start a brand new thing, if you have, just this is the weird, wacky world of like talent acquisition in youth baseball, right? Uh, Kids who are doing well at their current club are generally disinclined to want to join something new unless they
Yep.
really, really understand kind of the value proposition or they're getting away from something that they find dissatisfactory. And I think that that's generally like, that is a pretty good description of like how we got, the 108 kids we had in year 1. It was either one of those two things. It was people who this message of like athletic development
Yep.
and going like, hey, look, we don't have only one carrot on one stick.
Yep.
That's gameplay.
Which is winning. If you allow
It's winning.
people,
Yes.
right? If you allow the adults in the room to extract value from winning, that's what they're going to do.
Mhm.
Period. But keep going.
And yeah, and I think the other weird thing is that like oftentimes, we if you listen to some of these conversations in the stands, the way that they talk about like their youth club team is very similar to the way that they describe like the local MLB team.
Yep.
Which is crazy because
Yep.
like these are I've heard it with like 9 and 10s, dude, and it's like man, someone is literally like singing this child to bed at night. Some
Yep.
like this kid is getting read a bedtime story,
He still
and yet
sleeps
you're
with like stuffed animals and blankets and stuff.
yeah, but like you talk about the him and his buddies and their team performance, and you're like, well, they didn't really bring it, they didn't bring it this weekend or something like that, or like, shit, man. I mean, maybe I don't know, but they're also like 9-year-olds who still like watch Puppy Dog Pals, and
Yep.
like, what are we doing?
Yep.
Anyways, I think in year 1, we had a variety of just kind of environmental stuff that went wrong, but we also, I think, learned a lot about just what we needed to teach. Um, and I would say, like broadly, I think most of our teams, when we got on the field, on average, we did a pretty good job of being competitive in terms of like how fast we move the bat, how hard we hit
Yep.
the ball, and how hard we throw the ball. The thing that we like definitively struggled with was a lot of team play, and
Yep.
specifically, defense. Like that was a real issue. And I look at that stuff and it's like, well, I know why that happened. We got locked out of the facility for 12 weeks. We tried to train online. We tried to engage with kids, but it's like hard to teach functional baseball play over Zoom.
Yep.
Like that's just a very difficult thing, specifically with kids who, because it was COVID, had already lost a year of baseball,
Yep.
right? So we
For
we we
sure.
had a we
That's
had
my
a
son.
lot of stuff. Yeah. we had a lot of stuff that I think contributed to a winning percentage that like was very 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 low. Um, the problem, maybe not the problem, the context is that we also gained on average like something like 5 miles an hour throwing velocity,
Yep.
6.5 miles an hour of exit velocity average, or no, 6.5. What was it? 6.5 of peak exit velocity, 7 of average. Like we made good gains up and down our academy because that
Right.
was reflective of the way that we approached it. And what we didn't do is that didn't resolve itself into like competitive play on the field because we under indexed, or we just missed opportunities and we missed time to develop playing the game. It is
Yep.
two very distinctly different things. And sure, I'm sure that there's people who, look at, I mean, I know that, some of the real bad actors in our space
It was
loved,
messy. It
you
was
know, they
messy early.
they loved it, man. They
I
love to
followed it.
find, yeah, they love to
Yep.
find my game changer, and then they'll creep our
Yep.
game changer and talk shit. And
Yep.
it's like, I guess if you have the time and you got calories to burn, and you're really thinking that much about me, or you're
Yep.
thinking that much about our program, then by all means, man, it's public information. But um, if that's the only thing that you see, you are missing the forest for the proverbial trees.
Yep.
Um,
For sure.
and like when we posted our tryouts for year two, we had this big chart of our gains on the throwing side and the hitting side for like all of our teams. And somebody like chirped in the comments and was like, talking about these gains with youth kids is disingenuous at best and dishonest at worst. And it's like, well, look, motherfucker, it's in the hit tracks.
Yep.
Like I don't need to fudge numbers. We
Yeah.
don't.
No.
And the other thing that I will say is that like our baseline throwing performance was not like day one, you haven't thrown for 2 months, let me put you on a stalker and see
Sure.
what the gun
Yep.
is.
And then
Because that is
let's juice the numbers up after that for sure.
right. Don't do that because number one, it's unsafe because kids that have been on the shelf for like 10 to 12 weeks are in no position to go out and have a high intent throwing session and not have to open the door for something negative to happen injury wise, right?
Yep.
And two, it's just an incomplete picture of development. We didn't get any of our baseline numbers until we had like somewhere between 4 to 7 weeks of training already under our belts.
Right.
And those are still the numbers we ended up with. So yeah, man, our winning percentage up and down the academy was not great last year. We also retained 90% of our families.
That was going to be my question. How many? I'm sure there was some turnover, but again, I've been doing this long enough with the computers, with the technology, kind of mapping the training through this to be able to do honest work. And I find that the people that come and stick with it and get it, they stay. They
Yeah.
stay because it's honest work. And what you guys do, what you guys are doing, I'm sure with the academy, is honest work. Like you're doing the most honest, genuine job that you can do around the skills of baseball that matter the most. Like you said, playing the game, the skills of the game and playing the game are two different animals.
Yep.
I mean, it's not I go to the chicken coop and there's a frog out there.
Right.
It's I go to the chicken coop and now I got to catch the chickens. Like I got to run around
Yep.
and I got to catch the chickens. And it's not the different, but it's like you got to get out there.
Yeah.
My daughter, you got to get on the mound with a hitter in there and an umpire behind the plate and a count. And there's consequences and circumstances that are going to happen and stress and just things that the game brings. That Connor Dawson said this in the podcast. I got better at playing Call of Duty by playing Call of Duty. I didn't go to the practice mode and shoot at targets the whole time. And then once I got into the game mode of Call of Duty, it's like, I suck at Call of Duty. No, I got better at Call of Duty by playing Call of Duty. You get better at baseball, the game of baseball, by playing it. Like it's hard to, and you don't have to, again, you don't have to like go out every weekend and play a game every weekend. There are chunks of the game like live at bats that you can get, but it's like the ground balls and the defensive alignment and these things that just happen organically in the game. You got better at, but the turnover was what I was going to go at and ask. The 90% retention. That's amazing. Like that's amazing. That's in this world. That is amazing, and it goes to probably the ability to show your work. And I've told people that, people that don't, because you have the ability to recruit coaches that aren't dads, right?
Yeah, which is important.
Sure. But there are people out there, their dads have to coach the team. And I've told
Sure.
people this. The way that you get out of daddy ball is you have to be able to objectively say why is your kid batting third?
Right.
Because in the hit tracks, he ranks like 8th in exit
Right.
velocity. He ranks
Right.
like 12th in hard hit average.
Right.
Why are you doing that? If you can objectively add a piece of objective information from the decisions that you're making as a dad who has to coach travel ball, then I think people will be more, and you'll be able to, I guess, keep your team together better. How do you feel about that? You're
I
lucky,
mean,
but not a lot
I'm
of people are.
yeah. I mean, I think fundamentally, 90% retention rate is great. I also simultaneously believe that like if I had done a better job of structuring our program and
Right.
communicating where we were going, that like I'm always going to feel like we should have hit 100. Like
Yeah, and I
I
think that's
don't.
basic human nature of good people. Like you're a good
Yeah.
guy. You feel bad about the 10% that you
Yeah.
feel like you failed.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, one of the kids, funny enough, the team that we actually lost the most significant percentage of players from was our youngest team. We had a 9U team that was effectively an 8U team with like two 9-year-olds.
Yep.
Consider the travel ball ecosystem for
Yep.
8-year-olds playing nine,
Yep.
specifically 8-year-olds who also lost a year, almost a year and a half of gameplay.
Yep.
They were 7 when they played. Then they lost this year, and now they're like playing in like 9U, full on like mercenary pirate travel ball, and it's a very difficult thing. Now, I will 100% take responsibility for the fact that like no excuses. I think we should have done a better job at preparing them to play the game. However, I also am very proud of what we did developmentally, specifically for kids that age, right? Because there shouldn't be for a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old child. Man, there aren't a lot of outcomes on a baseball field that are like carved in stone. That's just
No,
not
no doubt.
that's not how this thing works. But that was the division, the team that we lost the most kids from. And I think the one thing, one of our parents had a comment, because we were soliciting feedback about kind of why they were leaving, and because I want to know it. I need to know.
Yep.
I need to know because I already have a list of things long as my arm that I think that we could have done better. But I also need to solicit for more of that stuff because I need to get other people's perspective because that's the only way that I get this thing as good as it can be.
Right.
And one of those parents reached back and they were like, we are going to go to XYZ organization because we want, little Johnny to focus on more technical instruction.
I get that every day. Yep.
And I only see that through this lens of like, okay, I had you for 10 months. I didn't do a good job of communicating why that is, communicating what our path is specifically, and also why it's not this other thing. Um, because that's the thing, right? Is it's just like
Yep.
this is a family who, again, they have the same intention for their child as mine. They want to see their child successful in the sport. They want to see their child have enjoyment in the sport,
Yep.
right? Um, and that family didn't understand after the time that they had with me that it's like, look, your child is like a 2 standard deviation smaller than average 8-year-old.
Yep.
If you want to play this game, there is like one path for long-term viability.
Right.
And there's another path where it's like, man, we are gonna try to maximize our ability to deploy what we bring biologically to the table right now up
Yep.
until the point that you're about 12 or 13, and then that shit don't play anymore. It just
Yep.
doesn't
No.
because the play space changes.
Yep.
And it's like I will root for that kid for as long as they play the game, whether they're in my organization or not, because a kid's a good kid, and who gives a shit if he plays for me? I just want to see that kid
Yeah.
be happy. I want to see him do
Yep.
his best. But I also will be kind of like watching over time and see, how it goes, because a
It's
lot of
disappointing.
times,
It's
a lot of
disappointing for me in a lot of ways too. You don't want to see. Again, I don't know these people, but I can speak on my own experience in the same thing. It's like I know these people are making the wrong decision, and it's really hard to watch because the kid can't help it. Like he's just doing what his parents wanted to do, and I know they're making the wrong decision, but I don't want to see him out of the game. I don't want to see
Yeah.
people out of the game. I don't want because I've said this before, and I've heard you say this. You pre the big field, you are in a dead beeline for the big field, and
Yep.
if you don't, is again, this is a time thing. If you don't spend every ounce of time that you have, because Tim Ferriss wrote this, and I've said this in this podcast. Tim Ferriss wrote the 4 Hour Chef. It's about
Yeah.
he wanted to take a skill and deconstruct a skill that he didn't know anything about and become proficient about it. And there's a line, the first 100 pages are about skill acquisition, and the last 500 pages are like recipes, which I'm not interested in. But there's a line in the first 100 pages where he said, oftentimes the highest performers, they have like unlimited time to devote to the craft. Most normal people don't have unlimited time. And so we have these small blocks of time that if we had unlimited time, this would be great. But you have this very small window for your child between these ages to maximize the game for the big field.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it when the big field comes around, it's going to be hard to watch. And they're going to be like, what's the stat? I'm sure you know. What's the stat of kids that quit when they're 13?
We lose annually somewhere around 1.2 million participants in the transition between 12 and like 13, 14.
Yep. And it's
And
not, people say,
annually.
yeah, I've heard people say that, oh gosh, for a variety of reasons that are not skill based. I mean,
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
even have to go into these, but there's all kinds of minutia that if you just work on your mental toughness when you're 11, or if you just work on,
You're right.
being a good teammate when you're 11, it's like, no, you're probably going to get pushed out of the game because your skills are just not good enough. Like
Yeah.
you're 43 down the pipe, or your arm strength, or the results that you've optimized for the game that 100% work. Like I'm not disputing travel ball guy that says if you hit more ground balls when you're 9, you're going to get more. You're going to get on base more. You are
100%.
magnificently right.
Yep.
But the problem is when he's 13 or 14 and he gets to the big field and the players get better, more skilled, and these 1.2 million kids get weeded out. That doesn't happen as much. Now you spend all this time optimizing for something that no longer works.
Yep.
And your kid's on a beeline to be out too.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think people understand how small the window is. And I tell people this, like, this window is going to be over before you can snap your fingers.
Yeah.
You have to act on it urgently.
Well, and like
every second urgently.
And the funny thing is like, my daughter's going to turn 15 in December. And I remember her first T-ball practice.
Right.
And the majority of our families that are on that 9U team that was mostly 8U kids were all, this was their first child. So it's their first time kind of through this thing. And I think it's just, man, again, it's that same thing, right? Where like we're not winning as much as you kind of perceive that we should.
Yep.
The funny thing is that like I looked at it and was like, look, we have like 2 or 3 9U kids. We're gonna play 9U because I don't want to feel like a scumbag.
Yep.
We had we got our doors blown off early playing 9 because we were an 8U team, and an 8U team of kids that hadn't played in a year and a half or whatever.
Yep.
So then we started playing more. We started having them play more 8U tournaments, and they start winning. It's like,
for sure.
Well, what does that tell you about the importance of like this 12-month window, right? Because those two or three kids that happened to be 9. Weren't even they weren't like game changers on the field.
For sure.
But so my daughter's going to turn 15 in December here, and she had that transition going from the small field to the big field happen during COVID, right?
Oh.
She had her 12-year-old year,
Yep.
her 12-year-old year in Little League, and she wasn't playing travel ball at that point, and then was going into that next year, and then COVID. So all we did is we spent, for the whole thing, for that year or almost year and a half, we were at the field 3 times a week, swinging speed trainers, trying to hit tanks. And then, she transitions, you transition from like what is approximately like a 7,000 square foot play space to a 27,000 square foot play space. I
Yep.
mean, and there's some, there's some gray area there because fields are weird, but like it is a really, really significant transition. And she transitioned on this big field space, and by no means is she a perfect ball player. I would not ever kind of put my kids out there like that. I think both of them are just
No.
they're just my kids, and I love them for where they
Yep.
are right now, right?
Right. For sure.
But for the first like 2/3 of the season, she was like top two or top three on the team in OPS and slugging. And
Right.
she's a 14-year-old girl playing her first year of travel
Yep.
ball against, against a competition that is like very much more experienced at this level of competition. And also for organizations that weren't first year organizations, because like,
Right.
it was a brand new thing for us.
Yep.
The only reason that she was able to be competitive to that degree as a hitter is just because she is representative of what we had done and the choices that we had made. Because for
Right.
that year and a half, we were on a 200 to a 225-foot fence trying to bank something into the trees. That's what
Yep.
we did. And with my dumbass and my broken shoulders and elbow, just doing like trying to do like firm front toss.
Yep. For sure. No, I'm with you.
And like that transition is just it's so under indexed for, and I understand why. Like and again, to the families that we lost from that 9U team, maybe the thing that kid needs right now is that they just need to win more, because maybe the thing that they took away from my
100%.
organization that year
100%.
is that they don't want to be with us because we lost more than we won, and that made them
Right.
feel crappy. And to that degree, whether this other organization you go to provides you the technical instruction, air quotes,
Yep.
technical instruction that you think your
Yeah.
your 9-year-old needs, I don't care, because if that other organization provides that kid with a fun experience for this year,
Yep.
um, then man, God bless them. And I hope
For
that we
sure.
were able to, we tried to do it the best that we could, but like losing feels crappy. So what you have to do is you have to provide kids context.
Right. And I said that about my son. His team won 3 games. And I told people this. I said, I control the perspective that we have. Kids take on the perspective of their parents. And oftentimes I wish it wasn't that, but that's true. Like, for better or for worse, that's true. I mainly controlled his perspective.
Yeah.
So he didn't our kind of our and I've said this on Twitter. I hate extra work. I hate if you play bad, and I hate it.
Oh
Like, kind
yeah.
of our cutoff point for him and my daughter at the game is like let's cut this off and let's go get ice cream. Like,
Yep.
that's kind of our cutoff point to like get over it and move on. Win, lose, or draw, we're gonna go get ice cream. But this past weekend, we backed our way into a silver bracket championship and
Yeah.
won and
Nice.
won, and he got a ring. And it's like, he couldn't have been
Yeah.
more proud of that, and I couldn't have been more happy for him, because winning is important. Like, winning is important. It is
Well,
important. Like, but it's what you incentivize and what you go after. Like, if all you do is pursue winning and all you incentivize is winning, that's not healthy. The
yeah.
pursuit of winning and the pursuit of the skills that it takes to win are important, but it's like, there's got to be a cutoff point, and I don't think people have this cutoff point to where they allow their child to move on. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to have kids that move on. Like, you
Yeah.
can't be talking. I've told this. We got this one dad who his kid's aging up, and he's done fantastically well in our gym. But like, hey, you're aging up. You're not going to hit 600 anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and he's really struggling with this, and he spent like weeks talking about his kid striking out too much in this one tournament. And I told him, I said, look, man, you have to stop talking about this at some point.
Yeah.
Like, you have to stop talking about this. Like, he listens to you, he hears you. And the last thing he needs, on top of the impossible skill of hitting an unpredictable ball at speed with a round bat on time, is impossibly hard. But now he has to like live up to your expectation not to strike out on top of that. And it's like,
because
this is
be-
awful.
because you're contextualizing your child's athletic performance the same way that like the random Mariner fans contextualize Jared Kelenic, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
man, square hole, round peg. These two things
Yep.
don't fit.
Yep.
But kids, kids respond to those signals, man, and it's like, yeah, winning is winning is good, right?
It's very
Like
good.
winning is good. It's just this question of like how do you pursue that goal and the stuff that
Yep.
you choose to focus on along the way and the stuff you don't. Like, I mean, you talk about backing into a win. Our our 9U team that was 8U last tournament of the year, they won the same thing, silver bracket, whatever,
Yep.
on a walk-off walk.
But they got the
And
lineup. They got something for it.
yep,
And again, I'm not, some people, again, it's the ability to think abstractly. It's like this, if we learned anything during COVID, things are very gray.
yeah,
The whole thing is very gray. Like these defined things are not. And again, it's like, I hear people say, you know, participation trophies, yada, yada, yada. But like some of these kids, that may be all they ever get.
yeah,
And again, I'm not incentivizing everybody gets a trophy. I'm not saying that, but it's like my son got a ring and he was like really excited about it. And
yep,
those 9U kids who probably took a beating most year, however they got a ring,
yep,
whether they deserve it, they're 9. Again,
yep.
they're 9.
Yeah, and like for me, I think the thing that I took away from that was like, okay, assuming all the other stuff that I know that we've already integrated in our program for year two for like how we train functional baseball play, right? We've already
Yep.
we learned those lessons by like March, April, May, actually probably by like April. Chase Glom, Ben Harley, and myself, the guys,
Yep.
the three of us are the ones that are really, in the weeds on what we do on the academy. We knew that stuff by that point. The problem is like the toothpaste is already out of the tube. We can't just like
Yep.
stop the season and go into another off season. So we had to kind of get by with what we had. But we were immediately like, all right, we've underserved these kids for functional baseball play, and a lot of it just is resolved on the defensive side of things. It wasn't so much approach in the batter's box or competitiveness on the bump. It really was just like functional baseball play. So what we decided to do with all of our families is like, hey, in August and September, I do want you shut down from throwing, right? Like we weren't
Right.
planning on training during this period of time. We're not going to do any throwing. Guess what? We are going to do defense every single session for like 2/3 of the time that we're in, and then it's just going to be long-term athletic development programming on our HP side from our strength guys. Uh, so we are going to focus on learning how to train each one of these kids essentially like a shortstop.
Yep.
We are gonna front load all this defensive work, and then I'm also going to focus on just like overall holistic movement quality. And we're trying to like make a little bit of hay with the time that we have while we're shut down on the throwing side, because that wasn't something we were able to deliver to these families earlier in the year. Uh, that stuff is ultimately my fault. The excuses don't really matter. It's just on me. So it's like, all right, now we just have to like start to check these boxes, because I know that period of time that we invested in August, September is going to pay dividends now in October. Now that we're back in team training again, we're going through our off season. We're going to get ready to go play sometime in January and February. Um, yeah, man, but like winning is absolutely important, and I've said this on podcasts before. Like I am very much kind of a psychopath in my own personal life when it comes to winning.
Yep.
Like I have displayed some traits in like men's like beer league softball where I've
Yep.
gone like full blown psychopath, and I'm like, man, I'm
Yep.
glad that my kids were like pretty young, so I don't think that they really remember those experiences,
Right.
right?
Well,
But
that's why I don't play like PlayStation. The guys are like, why don't you play 2K? I'm like, look, if I played 2K, what would happen is you guys would wipe the floor with me.
yeah,
And then I would spend every waking moment of every day of every time making sure that that never happened again. And I can't do that. And so I
right.
just choose not to play. Like
Oh,
I just
I know.
withdraw myself from playing. Now, my
Yeah,
perspectives, I see sometimes how people act in youth sports, and I'm like, I I have a very different perspective about this, so I wouldn't act that way. But again, you're right. With my own self, it's like I have to rein myself in my own competitive business or sales or training or whatever. It's like I focus on what we can do and handle, and the results be what they are. I feel good about them. But you're right. I mean, it's a battle. It sure is.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, shit, man, we didn't win as many games as I wanted. Developmentally, I think we did a pretty darn good job. And we learned from it. Like that is really all that we can do. So, no excuses, like uh in terms of like the winning percentage, but by the same token, if these same people that want to like creep my game changer
Yep.
and send screenshots to Jeff Fry or whoever,
Oh
um,
God.
like, look, man, you are highlighting something that I'm never going to care about.
Yep.
Uh,
Just
I,
not.
I will simultaneously like tell my kids I want you to go out and I want to play your tails off because I want you to do your best effort because that's going to open the door for the best outcomes, and that generally should resolve itself in a win. I'm also not my love is not conditional. It's just not. It's never going to be, and it can't be, because these are kids who are prepubescent kids, or even some of our younger kids this year, right? They have enough people in this world. Some of our 17 to 18-year-old athletes this year. We have a whole new crop of 17U and 18U kids, and they're good, but
Right.
they're
I
also
imagine they are.
but they're also at that stage of time where it's like, okay, now they're starting to get stressed out about college commits, and now they're starting
Yep.
to get stressed out about everything that opens up the door for them. So do they need another guy like me that is going to put all this pressure and stress to them about winning? Or do they need someone to tell them, hey man, go out and do your best. I love you either way.
Yep.
Like as the person that's like at the helm, right? Because I don't coach a team. I will I'll roam around the facility. I'll say a thing or two to a kid as I'm around. I'll try not to ruin them. I'll try not to say something too stupid. I'll try to just encourage them because that's the best thing that I can do. And all we need to do, kind of as a program, is to have systems and structures in place that develop whole baseball players, right? Like that's the thing, because that's what people should have a reasonable expectation for us to do. Our job is just to like in 2K, play with the sliders, right? Like I'm
Right.
literally playing with the sliders. Right now in October, we're onboarding on the throwing side. That's a majority of our focus. Uh, as we move into November, then we're going to go into a little bit of a velocity development phase. So the sliders on the hitting are going to go down a little bit. Slider on
Right.
the throwing goes up.
Yep.
Once we complete that phase by somewhere around mid to late December, then we switch it around the other way, right? And then by the time that we get to January, now our sliders are in a position where we're orienting for competition. We're spending
Yep.
a lot more time on a field, taking the built-in defensive capacity at an individual level we developed into a field, into functional baseball play. Uh, so yes, man, the winning percentage in last year was not great. It also was a huge gift because
Sure. Yeah.
man, we got so much information about knowing the stuff that worked and the stuff that didn't work. And I
That's
don't.
kudos to your parents though too, in being patient and being understanding of what target you're shooting at. And then you guys, I'm sure you did. I'm curious about how much your parents, you know, I find that sometimes they don't ask, sometimes they don't want to know, sometimes they just trust that you know what you're doing. How much was the communication with the parents and providing them? I mean, I'm sure that all your players have track accounts,
Yep.
and the parents can probably log into a track account and see a dashboard at any time of how their measurable skills are improving.
Yep.
How much did you find parents were interacting with that, or they were just like, Mike? And again, this goes to I don't, and I've used this example on this podcast with a guy. I don't know. I don't know what's the goal of the podcast. I don't know, but I have fun doing it. I have fun doing it.
Right.
And I've known in my life that if I was going to accomplish anything, whether that be get to professional baseball, I've seen and worked alongside guys that got to the big leagues, that didn't get to the big leagues, but I know the amount of work of growing a podcast, or the amount of work that it takes. You're going to have to like it. You're going to have fun doing it. And
Yep.
I imagine that people saw their kid having fun, and they kind of knew in the back of their mind they were getting better because you guys are world renowned at player development and improvement. It's like, how
Yeah.
much did you have to communicate with parents about what
Um.
was happening or what the goals were? Or I
Yeah.
struggle with that. I struggle with how much to tell parents on our own floor. I I go back and forth on should I allow them in, should I not allow them in.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I didn't allow them in because there are ones that I just would be their kid would be way better off if they weren't in here. But then I
Yep.
can't pick and choose who comes and who doesn't. So we just kind of let them go. But it's like, how much information do they want about what we're trying to do or what we're doing?
Yeah, I don't think that there is too much communication that you can do.
Right, for sure.
That's kind of our
Especially what
general
you're doing.
structure.
Yep.
Yeah, and the again, the environmental reality of like we had to deal with last year is that we're in the middle of COVID, and we didn't even know kind of at the start of this thing what COVID really was and how it was going to affect
Right.
us. So like we literally the first time that we got like the entire academy together was at the end of the year. It was the first time that we had like this big like culture community building event. So previous to that, I really tried to be overboard with communicating that stuff. So in track, we had these rolling report cards where essentially it would just be like a near constant feed of
Yep.
the data that we're getting over time. And you start to see these patterns of fluctuations where like there's going to be some bumps, but like the general trajectory is like
Yep.
we're moving in the right place. And we tried to really stay on top of that. We have some new processes in place this year where we're actually going to be a lot more frequent with not only like, hey, this is a tool you can access to check on the progress of your player's development, but we're scheduling player parent meetings every 6 to 8 weeks because it is.
Right.
I think that's the one thing that I've taken away from last year is that it is really, really, really critical to make sure everybody's on the same page about progress and intention, right?
Yep.
What's the progress that we're making? What's the intention that we have for this like next phase of training? So we really try to be overboard in terms of communicating the development side of things. The other thing that we try to do is again actively solicit feedback from our parents. So every weekend we would go out and have a tournament, and on Monday morning we would send a feedback form out. Hey, just tell me,
Yep.
what do you think of your coach? What
Yep.
and we would be able to,
And
uh,
quite frankly, as a parent that sits on the outside of the fence, with, I mean, my experience where I live is much higher than most of the other parents. Most people that do my experience are coaching the team.
right.
I trust the people that are coaching my kids' team. So again, I would feel comfortable answering that if the coaches send me that. Like I would feel comfortable giving because there are certainly things that I would give feedback on that they could have or would have done differently, on my perspective. But sometimes my perspective is, oh, he's just a know it all. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to help. Like, I just want the best.
Yeah.
How much did the parents interact with the feedback? I mean, you probably got some
It
stuff that was
man,
useless, and you probably got some good stuff.
I would honestly say it was like 90, I don't know, 98% really, really positive and beneficial for us. Because even if some of that feedback was negative, um, all right, man, like that's, something happens and you had a negative impression of it. The moment
Yep.
that you start to communicate to that to me, because I'm like a systems guy, then it's the next question of like, all right, well, was there information that I didn't get effectively communicated to you? Uh, did you check the email? Right? Did you read the email? Did you see the video message that I did alongside it? Like, because it was COVID and we couldn't even have parents in the facility, so like I was doing,
Right.
at least monthly, if not like bi-weekly videos at a certain point, like talking about what we're doing, talking about the progress we're making, adjustments, and all this other stuff. Um, so we got really, really good information from that feedback system, and it's something we're continuing this year. The only thing we're doing different this year is we brought all of our academy families into their own Slack channel. So like each
Yep.
team has its own little Slack channel, and we're
Yep.
really trying to like weaponize that to again increase the quality and consistency of our communication. Then in
Yep.
the year of our Lord 2021, a lot
Yep.
of times people like, man, they get enough email. Like the email is like the
No doubt.
last.
No
It's like
doubt.
the last
It
thing that
drives me
you.
bananas. It drives me bananas when I got to download another team app
Yep.
and we're use this other team app. And it's like, I think about that in myself. It's like, how could I communicate with people better where I'm just not indulging them with another app, with another notification, with something else. It's like Slack is a great thing. I use it. We use it a lot
Yeah. I
in
mean,
different ways.
for the academy, it is a little bit of a ponderous technological thing because Slack for comms, track for your player performance, You have to create the HitTrax account. You have to
Yep.
create the Blast account. We'll
Yep.
create the Pulse account for you, but sometimes you have to confirm that.
Yep.
Eventually, we are going to have our teams on some type of scoring app. We're going to have games streamed for like I mean,
Yep.
there
It's a
there
lot.
is
It's a
it
lot.
is a lot, and I am both the guy who's like steering the ship and also a parent. So like
Yep.
there have been times where my wonderful wife and I have been like, I'm like, hey honey, like what time is the kids practice? Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
literally like running the program and I can't remember when I need to get my kid to the facility.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I think that type of communication is just incredibly impactful because uh, the families that I am most beholden to are my own, you know, like, and especially when you're talking about these families that like joined up with us in year one of our organization, man, I love these
Yep.
kids and I love these families. And that goes for the ones, the 90% of them that stayed with us and
Yep.
also the ones that left
Sure.
because they took a chance
I mean,
on us. And,
I
and
was going to say they
you know,
took a chance.
I did my best. I lost sleep. I put on 20 pounds. Like I really tried to deliver the best possible product that we had. And the reality is there's some things we did well. There's also some things that we have like a lot of opportunity to improve. The only thing that I will say is because I don't have an ego about this shit, the moment
Yep.
that we identify opportunities for improvement, that's just what we do. You know, like I
Right.
was talking to somebody the other day. It's like, look, man, we don't program any of our kids for the towel drill. Uh,
No.
and
Nope.
I don't do that, and I can give you a pretty well reasoned explanation of why that is. However, if there was some new piece of research that came out tomorrow or maybe Monday, and it was like the towel drill is the most important thing for developing blah,
Yep.
I would probably want to validate that study, and I would probably want to read it very
Right.
very carefully because it's in
Right.
opposition to like what I currently understand about it. But the moment that that was proven, well, shit, that's just what we're gonna do
That's what we're doing.
because like I think people if there's anything that people don't understand about Driveline is that the only thing that we really try to be beholden to is what's the best way that I could serve my initiative. What is the
Yep.
best way that I can serve my players? What's the best way that I can serve my coaches? What's the best way that I can serve my parents? Because that's it. Um, we don't want to do game changer for comms right now, right? Because game changer communication is just like an absolute dumpster fire. I
Oh.
absolutely hate it, right? And it's even worse on the administrative side. So we're not doing that. But then we had parents that were like, "Hey, the one thing I really like about game changer is I get these practice notifications. It just the alert pops up on my phone
Yep.
and that's really helpful. So I was like, all right, well, there's got to be a solution for this. Well, there is a solution. It's this thing called EventBot, and it's a bot program that runs in Slack on the schedule that you throw into it, and it gives you all those notifications through Slack. It costs $1,000. Well, shit. You know what? If that solves a problem for my parents, and
Yep.
that is $1,000 less that we have in profit, I don't care because I don't
Yep.
care about the money. I care about the service and the experience and
Yep.
the development that I provide to my community. That's what we're here
Yep.
for.
That's how Walt Disney built Disney World. If not for Walt's brother, people say Walt, because Walt just wanted the best park. Like Walt wanted to build the best park. He didn't care what it cost. He didn't care
Yep.
anything about it. It's like I want to build the best experience for these people. And I think people that have built successful organizations, successful business, successful whatever, have had, and a lot of like head butting that I do with people in business on the business end is
Yep.
like I'm operating from a perspective of I'm trying to do what is the very best for the people, the customers that I have, without benefit to me. Like
Yep.
I've got this on the cap sales side of our business. I've got this one client. The supply chain crap is killing. Is
Oh yeah.
been a nightmare. It's been awful.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never charged these people shipping costs. Okay, because they're running a wholesale business. I want to help them be successful. Shipping costs. We used to have where these big orders that they would send us would ship together, and there would be one shipping cost. It would be fine. Now
Yeah.
all these individual pieces are shipping one at a time on back order dates, and shipping costs is crazy. But I'm not
Yep.
going to go back and ask them because this will sort itself out eventually, and
Yep.
I don't want to just like, hey, I'm going to need to charge you an crazy amount for shipping. It's like, I'm just going to ride this out, take a loss. This is baseball. You take losses at times in order to like get a bigger gain. It's like
Oh,
your
absolutely.
organization in year one. It's like, we're going to take these L's, but like, again, if you can keep 90% involvement, and I know for a fact you say 5 to 6%, and again, that's lowballing it. If you extrapolate this over time,
Right.
it's like these teams are going to be really freaking good.
I mean, that's the value prop, right? And
Yep.
again, what that is the door. That's the door to winning that we're interested in opening, right?
Yeah.
Not choosing this path that is like the game theory optimal. It's this other thing where
Right.
we are winning because our skill development and our skill acquisition and the deployment of such is just in a very, very advanced level, right? Because the moment that we start to establish that beachhead, you compound those gains over time, man, and just like we're gonna be in a really good place. And
It becomes an unstoppable thing, and it's the Thanos, and it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Like, this is an
yeah.
inevitable thing. But again, we're running up on your time for your wife, but
Oh,
this is
geez, yeah.
another deep rabbit hole we could go in. Is there's always just going to be that team that stacks their team with biologically advanced kids,
Oh, sure.
and
Yep.
it's like we can't beat them because they're like a team of 16-year-olds that are actually chronologically 12.
Yeah.
And it's like we just can't play on the same field. But that doesn't make it. That doesn't. And again, I've had a few here, and I've told the parents, it's like, look, I'm not bagging on that kid, certainly not. But in my experience of this, he is the worst player on this floor, because if you look at his gains over time, he's not going anywhere.
Right.
And your kid is. And it's like, this is going to even out eventually.
Yeah.
He's going to continue to be like this. And as long as your kid, it's the old saying, and I have to explain this to people, you either get better or get worse. You can kind of stay relative to where you are,
Yeah.
but somebody is going this way. And if somebody's going this way, you're going the other way. And it's
Yeah.
like, you've got to gain ground on your competition. And
Yeah.
it's not, again, when you open computers and you use technology, you start to realize this is very hard to do.
Yeah.
This is extremely hard to do. Like, you can't put the ball on the tee. You can't put the ball on the tee and just whack balls off the tee and make progress. You can't do it. It's impossible.
It's not
If
the
you
game,
could, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. The whole calendar and biological age thing is a very, very weird thing. And I think, and again, when you're talking about parents, especially young parents who don't have an older child, they're highly sensitive to this stuff.
Right.
Um, in that time because they have no other kind of perspective, right? It's like if you go to like an 11U game, parents uh, with the best intention, right? They
Right.
they have the best intention. They love their children. They want to help their children
And they're
succeed,
good people mostly.
and they're good people, right? They are they're trying to help, right? But there's a lot of chatter, a lot of 18U games, man. It's pretty quiet,
Yep.
like because you're talking about parents who have suffered through this whole thing of like from t-ball to
Yep.
12U majors to 13-14 bridge to 15-16, on a 90 field, and now you're 17-18, and now the most loudest voices generally come from the players, not the parents.
Right.
But a lot of parents don't understand kind of like the biological and calendar to age thing tends to diminish in effect by the time the kids get to be 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
And again, because we're parents and we love our children and we want to keep them safe, uh, you see your kid and they're like very much not a genetic outlier, right? Or
No.
they at this time, especially in comparison to other kids, it's like, well, yeah, little Johnny's just got to like try to hit his spots, and he's got like 7 different like really bad breaking pitches because that's the way that
Yep.
he's got to get competitive against these kids because he's small. And it's like, well, yeah, but that kid is also like infinitely responsive to stimulus, and the stimulus you could
Yep.
give to that child is that like getting good at moving fast is probably the most important thing in this game. Like
For
you
sure.
you you have to get good at moving fast, like at a very, very fundamental level. Like that's the game. I have the ABCA talk at Chicago in January, and one of the guys that's also going to be talking reached out and wanted to make sure that like we weren't kind of overlapping because he's going to
Right.
do a talk about hitting, and I certainly don't want to step on anybody's toes. Um, and I was just like, no, because I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into swing mechanics at ABCA because there are people way
No.
smarter, way more talented, and have more time under tension to broach that topic. What I will tell you is that, as far as I can understand right now, good hitting is moving fast, moving accurately, and being able to be adjustable. That's it. That
Right.
that's it. You have to do those three things. And if you're not training in a way that is representative of that, regardless of where you are on the biological calendar timeline, you are missing the most important thing. That's what the game
Yep.
is. That's
In
what
a
the game
window,
is.
and we said this earlier, in a window of time that goes by like that, it's going
Yeah.
to be gone. My daughter, 9. I don't know if you've seen the picture on the internet, deadlifting.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
hell
told
yeah.
and I tell
Yep.
and I tell people, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, she is about, I don't know, 6 years away from having to make a decision about secondary education and
Hmm.
and whether or not she wants to pursue something. We can't wait. Like, we
Right.
can't wait to get this going. Like, we're gonna slowly walk into it, and I tell people in the facility, you got to take small bites, and you got to take small drinks, and you just got to keep sipping over time. Like, you can't take this huge, enormous bite or turn the 5-gallon trash can up and drink from it. It's because you're gonna be done, and it's like, just take a small bite and just walk and just keep going. And again, you start building skills that scale, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and you get to that 18-year level, and it's like, huh, that really worked. It's like, well,
And
yeah, of course it did.
and specifically within this window of time, right? Because if we don't have freedom from consequence with preteen children,
Yep,
when the fuck ever are we gonna have it?
exactly,
Like,
exactly. There's no better
what?
time than now. There's
So
literally no better time than now. There is no better time for my son, who is 7, to absolutely swing as hard as he possibly can in a moving
yeah,
pitch and
yeah,
fall down. There
yeah,
is no better time. He
yeah.
thinks it's funny. He's not beating himself up. He loves it. And when he finds contact, it goes a long way. You know, I purposefully, this is something I venture on and off. And every time I venture back on it, I always beat myself up about it. But I need to make sure I always throw my kids, and you probably, I don't know, your 8, 9 year olds could probably benefit though. But as you scale up speed in the game, one of the things I try to do is scale it up with tennis balls, because they're not afraid to swing as fast as they can because their hands aren't going to get blown up.
Sure.
And then it's not, they hold back because they're afraid they're going to get jammed and it's going to sting.
Yeah,
And so I want you to learn how to swing as fast as you can at a ball that's moving at a decently high rate of speed without the fear that your hands are going to get blown up. But
yeah.
my son freaking loves it because the tennis ball goes farther on the hit
Oh
tracks.
hell yeah.
And I always beat myself up when we always do. We're always like bouncing tennis balls in there. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, I fixed my son's swing. Listen to me. I fixed my son's swing
No, I know what you
a
mean.
couple a couple of times this year by hitting tennis balls. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, let's hit these as far as we can. Not because I'm always going to the fact, it's like, I don't want to tell him anything. And he's done some things this year with his swing. And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
All right, I got to figure out a way for him to stop doing that,
Yeah.
because he's got to stop doing that. And it's always like, swing faster.
Yeah.
It's like he falls into this bucket in a game. It's the first time he struck out. This is a great story. And then we'll start winding down. But this is a great story about the first time he struck out in a game. So I always go down after the game. I always stand way far away because I don't want people being like, hey, can I ask you a question about
Oh
my
yeah.
kid's swing?
Yeah.
Sure, I suppose so. But I always stand far away, and I always go down after the dugout, him or my daughter, say, hey, that was really awesome, really cool. And before I got a word out of my mouth, he said, I struck out. And I'm like, I've been telling you for like 3 months that I could not care less.
Yep.
I couldn't care less. Buddy, I don't care. We're going to go get ice cream after the game regardless. I told you that.
Yeah.
But you swung hard 3 times and you missed. So be it.
Yep.
Don't swing slower. But I think when he falls into these funky things that he does with his swing, I think it's just optimizing for contact, just easy contact, which at his level would play. But it's
Yeah.
like, we're not going to do that. And my daughter is exceptionally fast. She can fly, but it's like, we're not going to optimize for the ground ball here. We're
Yep.
not. You could
Yep.
get a bunch of hits doing that.
Yep.
We're going to try to pound the left center to right center of the wall with
Yeah.
some power, and we're going to stand on second and third base out of the box because that's what's going to help your team win. Now, you could get on first and steal second, steal third. That's fine. We're still not going to optimize for that because long term, that's not going to get you where we need you, where you could go.
It just it doesn't play, like my version of that story is probably a month and a half ago. D and I, my son, we went down to
Yep.
the field, and like when he's training at Driveline, I don't I'm hands off. Like, I got guys that are
Why would you not?
fucking
Why would you jump in there? Like, what?
yeah,
Let me show you something.
like, man, no. So like when
Quite
we go
frankly,
to
if
the
I came to Driveline, I would probably sit with you and drink coffee.
yeah, we can do that.
And it's like, I'm to go. Let's
Yeah.
go on. Like,
Yeah. So like when we go down to our local field, and it's 200, 225, whatever. The only thing he's trying to do is hit the ball over the fence. And if it goes over the
Yep.
fence, he's trying to hit the ball into the forest on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
Now I can tell you in a technical sense, the intentionality in that training is I am trying to help him pattern that outcome, right? Because that outcome is the most valuable outcome. I will grant that the way that we train that is not that task difficult, right? So when we're
Nope.
doing that, he has movement solutions that are representative of that, right? So like about a month and a half ago, I had my phone recording, and I was trying because I got a new phone, and I was trying like the wide angle lens, right? So
Yep.
it's so like the camera's kind of up on him, and you could really see like how he really, like, man, the internal rotation of that lead leg, he really stacks the shit out of that thing and gets it really high up there, and then gets it out and braces,
Yep.
and is just like trying to hit nukes. Um, and I had somebody in my comments,
Yep.
you can't hit real pitching like that, right? And
I think I commented back with 2 pictures of my kids.
yeah, yeah. And so, but as much as it would be easy to just go like, oh, that guy's a dick. Um, Again, he has the same intention for his kids, and I know he has kids because he runs a travel organization around
Yep.
here. His kids play for, so there's
Yep.
some stuff there. But anyways, um, he has the same intention with his children as he does with mine. He has the same intention for the kids in his organization as I do
Right.
for mine. He wants them to be as good and successful as possible. So he sees this exaggerated leg kick, and he's like, danger, fear, that you
Right.
can't do that. And I'm like, well, no, because for as long as my kid has been swinging it, his movements have adapted to the environment and the task. I came
Yep.
across a video uh, about a week ago when he was like 1.5, and he's like hitting wiffle balls with like the big yellow bat,
Yep.
off of our shed. Because he was like 1.5, his feet were locked in place, and his swing was just, but he's like
Yep.
trying to hit the shit out of it, right?
Yep.
So then I want to say it was either Monday or Wednesday this week. We had our 13 U's in the machine against the eye pitch, uh, hard 70-mile-an-hour fastballs.
Yep.
And the swing that I posted was the best swing that he had.
Yep.
But the funny thing is that like the cadence for that actual round, first swing out of his shoes falls down.
Yep.
Second swing finds a barrel, low liner, not great contact quality on the third base side. The third one, tank. And through this process, if you watch all 3 of those swings, the height of the leg kick goes down, but the
Yeah.
degree of internal rotation and like loading into that thing and getting
Yep.
the pelvis ready to fire doesn't. And and that's kind of, this is the Bruce Lee thing, right, man? Like, be water.
Yep.
The water adapts to the cup. The water adapts to the stream. The water adapts. And like,
Yep.
and I understand for parents, because a lot of times when we see our children struggling with sports and athletics, we have a very like binary fixation on
Yep.
the problem, right? My child is struggling in math; they need a math tutor, right?
Yep.
My kid is not generating the outcomes that I find valuable on the field, so he needs to work on his or her mechanics.
Right.
Well, it could also be that you just need to back the fuck off and
Right.
let that child develop movement solutions in accordance to the task, which
Right.
then opens up the same thing we started talking about like an hour and a half ago about why it's probably not good to invest in a lot of tea time because
Right.
that's not the task.
Right. Because the
And
baby
like,
giraffe stinks at processing perceptual information. He
right,
stinks at it. Like he's a
right,
baby giraffe. He's not good at it, which is going to
right,
shake contact a lot. You know,
right.
this could go on another hour about he hits the tank. He hits the tank in my building, and now he has to move to the plate that's 3 feet in front of him and
Yep,
try to find timing there. And then he
yep,
goes, just always trying to build a system that doesn't happen on the tee. It doesn't.
yep.
Like, like you could talk about again. I find that crazy. My daughter has a leg kick. My son has a leg kick. I think, and there's no, and I'll say this till the end of my time doing this. There is no better time for you. You can't move small until you've moved really big. Because how would you know? How would you know that you shouldn't move big?
Right,
And there's no better time to move big than now. You're 9. It doesn't matter.
right.
Move really big. And my daughter has optimized. She's got a leg kick. The only thing she's ever been told. And it's funny because, again, we could go another hour on this. People think I have this grand design. Because I played professional baseball,
Right,
people think I had this grand design for my kids on how they're supposed to swing.
sure.
And it's like most people leave them alone. Actually, everybody leaves them alone. No one says anything to them because it's like, yeah, their dad played pro ball. Like
Right,
he works with them. It's like we go in the cage and hit tanks. And like she's
right.
got that big leg kick because I've only told her and my son, I want you to hit this thing absolutely as far as you possibly can because if we lived in the Dominican Republic, that's what we'd be doing too.
Right,
Like
right,
that's how we get off the island. We hit this tank as far as we can hit it. And
right,
it's like you see Dominican kids that move big and they've got these big elaborate movements and they get scaled down when they come over, not
when the
because people teach them to scale them down, because it gets a lot harder.
right
You
task
know,
complexity goes way up and you
it
have
gets
to
a lot
shift
harder and
to
they can't
adapt.
do it anymore.
But
Maybe
like,
they
but
can, but it's not somebody telling them. It's like, hey, Bo Bichette, you can't leg kick like that. It's never going to play in the big leagues, big guy. It's like,
yeah,
no, he just kind of always did it and it
I
worked.
mean,
And so he kept doing it.
can you imagine how cool it would be like to sit down with Dante and be like,
Oh,
tell me, I'm really curious about how you ended up here
I asked Mike
because
Bryant that about Chris
yeah,
in at the Pitchapalooza in Nashville. Gosh, 5 years ago or so, Mike
yeah,
Bryant spoke, and I had just had. I guess it was longer than that because I just had my son, and he spoke, and I went up to him after, and I said, Mike, can I ask you a question? Not as a coach, not as an instructor, but as a dad.
yeah,
What did you and Chris do when you were little? He said, we went to the field, took in a bucket of balls, we went to the field, and he tried to hit the ball over the fence. Sometimes it was half a bucket, sometimes it was a whole bucket, sometimes it was 3 buckets. We hit till he was done and we went home.
uh,
And it's like, huh, okay, that's what we'll do too.
yeah,
And again, my career has come in a very different place and understanding the complexity. Because again, I'm not educated. Like I'm not smart. I'm a health and physical education major. So I did take some of these things in college, but at the time in college, I'm fresh out of pro ball. So I'm
right,
like, this stuff never applies to baseball.
right,
I know baseball. I've been to pro ball. Like
right,
I know all there is to know. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do T-work and backspin the ball. And it's like, huh, there are better ways to do this. And again, the culmination of my journey in getting into technology and computers and realizing like, I'm not helping that many people. I better do it a better way. And then I stumble into
yeah,
Driveline, and then it's this whole thing about self-organization and task. And it's like kids just figure it out. As hard as that is to believe, they just
yeah.
kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and I understand why parents have like a natural disinclination to that because it doesn't
They get
feel like a
sold that
full
perspective.
it doesn't feel
That
like a full
perspective is
answer.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and again because absolutely right. If you Google like youth hitting mechanics, I'm sure that
Oh,
there's like 5 or 10 people there that want to sell you a gadget or they
yep.
want to sell you a system or
Yep.
they want to solve you a problem.
Yep.
And over here, at Driveline, I want to sell you a mini hitting plyo.
Yep.
It's right because what I
Yep.
want you to do is I want you to understand that this thing is heavier than a baseball. So hit it far, you have to move the bat fast, and
Yep.
because it's heavier than a baseball, and it's also less forgiving of mishits, you have to hit it flush.
Yep.
I'm not, and all I'm, and yes, we have a mini hitting plyo PDF that should be like live to go download with that thing right now. And like, I'm not trying to like talk about our products and shit, but
No, you're good.
but
Talk
but
about
the
whatever you want.
but the point is it's like what I really want you to do is I want to teach you an intention and I want to teach you an outcome, and I want you to understand that like the highest application of that intention is going to resolve itself in an outcome that is beneficial. And
Yep.
it's not a guarantee, but shit, man, trying to perfect your swing mechanics on a tee, that's not a guarantee
Yep.
either.
Caleb
Uh,
Abney said this. I've had Caleb Abney on the podcast 3 times. One of them has posted. There are 2 more.
oh, because
And he
I've only
said this.
listened to the one.
This is one of the, he said, self-organization is happening, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
Okay. So as a coach, I'm trying not to be a constraint because the player is going to self-organize around the information I'm giving them. Whether you believe in self-organization or not, it's happening.
Right.
Self-organization on the tee is completely different from self-organization off a moving pitch, self-organization of a fast ball, self-organization of me telling you, it scares me, even though to tell a player, you talked about the grip earlier. It's like, God, I'm scared to death if I told a player this. It's like, I'm going to mess this kid's whole self-organization process up. It's like, this is so hard. It's like, what do I say? What do I not?
I had a kid in Little League like 3 years ago who had like lefty Barry Bonds hand pump,
Yep.
and like
Oof.
and I was a shitty athlete, right? So I'm not a best example of this, but like I've tried to like screw around with that in a
Yep.
cage, and even off a tee, I have a hard time timing it up. And
Yep.
this kid came to me fresh with the Bonds,
Yep.
and I'm
That's the
like,
way I'm going to do it.
and like at the beginning of the year, swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm doing that thing where it's like,
Yep.
do I say something or no?
Yep.
Do I say something or no? And I left it alone all year. Culminates in this kid finding 2 huge barrels in our end of season tournament championship.
Yep.
Uh, for him, that process of self organization with the movement solution he was using, it took some time. I could have shortcut that, and I could have
Yep.
been like, "Hey, I just need you to like just stack these things right here."
Yep.
But I am terrified that I am
Right.
taking away something that is natural to that young athlete that is like a net loss over time
Right.
than the potential bonus of him understanding himself.
Right. And it goes to Ryan Parker, one
Yep.
of the OGs. He
Yes,
used to
yes.
say, finding your favorite swings, like finding your favorite ice cream. You don't know. You're going to find some good ones. You're going to find some bad ones, but you don't know until you've tried them all. Like handset things are something like, how do you know you shouldn't be a Barry Bonds guy? To the other guy, it's like, how do you know you shouldn't be a Barry Bonds guy? You've never tried it. How do you know you shouldn't be Tony Bautista down here?
Sure.
Like, how do you know that? And so again, it's within our framework of how we do things, especially like in front toss things. It's like I build in just start your hands up here, load them back. Start your hands
Sure.
down here, load them back. Like
Yeah.
start your hands right here, load them back. Like just providing opportunities for searching to happen. It's the same thing. We can go back to the strike throwing on the pitching side. It's like the whole searching process for kids. It's like I'm not going to give you that many answers because the search process is super important. Like you
And the
don't know how this kid's rhythm is going to work. You don't know how his body's going to move. You don't know what, but in the search, he learns that, hey, if I'm going to find my optimum, so I got to look for it. The
right,
gatekeeper's not going to give it to me.
right,
Like he doesn't know. He doesn't know me as well. I can
right,
give you opportunities in framework to search, like start your hands here, start your hands here, start your hands here, pump your hands. Like we did
right.
today, we did like bat on the shoulder, knee pump, and then
Yep,
go.
yep,
It's like you may find that you like that movement. So let's
yeah.
start to kind of build that into a swing and see what it looks like. I don't
The
know. And
the
that's not
the
a popular answer in coaching.
the best 2021 example I have of that is that my son plays a lot of MLB The Show,
Yeah.
and he
Which is a
got
learning process, by the way.
Oh boy, if I could, I would buy a PS4 for every kid in my academy, and I
Yep.
would mandate that they play that game for
Yep.
like 3 hours a week. Anyways, so my son plays a lot of the show. He got Ty Cobb, because
Yep.
they build new players, right?
Yep.
We're just down at the field, he and I just screwing around trying to hit tanks, and he starts doing like the Ty Cobb thing where like the hand is
Yep.
here and he starts high and then comes down.
Yep.
and he's like, I'm just gonna do the Ty Cobb tank.
Yep.
I'm gonna do the Ty Cobb tank. And it's like, and he kind of like looked at me, and I'm like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
You've always been a pretty
Do
good
that.
hitter. If you want
Yep.
to do that right now, screw it. Why not? Let's do that. Because at the end of the day, the thing that I am terrified of, and I think a lot of coaches should be more terrified of, is that
Yes.
the moment that I presume to know better about the best fit for an athlete is the moment that I open up this world of lost potential. Because
Yes.
it is this like, I'm just
Yep.
square hole round pegging, and I'm like, well, that's the thing that I think worked for that guy, so I'm going to prescribe it to that kid. And like,
Yep.
shit, man, those pants might not fit.
Yep. And that you can't go back. You can't
Nope.
go back. There's not a DeLorean time machine where we can go back. You only got a single bullet at this. Just try to give them as much bandwidth to search and find and build and measure, and I guess you're guiding them, but like I'm just trying not to get in the way.
Yep.
Really, for young kids, I'm trying not to get in the way, and older players too. I mean, this we talk about this in the context of, you know, I think it would serve a lot of big leaguers to search more. To search for especially hitters. Blake Trinan is throwing you some bullshit, man, and like you may want to like look for that solution
Right.
because it ain't happening with the coach out there just dialing it in for you. I tell
Right.
our guys this all the time. It's like you got the fact that it's not the pitcher's job to throw you something hit. Got it? Like that's the foundational thing of hitting.
Yeah,
It's not the
that stopped
pitcher's
in like the
job
late 1800s.
to throw it in there for you to hit. Okay, so
Yeah.
we need to like it's not my job if I'm throwing you BP to lay it in there for you to hit. Like I'm trying to challenge your edges. We go no takes, so you better be swinging.
Sure.
You better be swinging, not because you're going to swing at that in a game, but because we're going to take your hot zone that may be like this, and we're trying to make it like this. And we're
Yep.
only going to do that if we swing at these things.
Yep.
Again, it's great. It's hard for people. You got to go. You got to go to dinner with your
Oh
wife.
yeah, I gotta go to dinner.
I got to ask you though.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Marvel movies?
Favorite Marvel movie? I gotta be Civil War. Cap and Iron Man. You
Yeah,
can't. I mean, I'm a
Winter
big Hulk.
Soldier. With the Winter Soldier Captain America movie, is Winter Soldier's character arc is so underrated in that
Yeah,
world too.
yeah, no,
It's
it's
so
it's
good.
phenomenal. I mean, and like Endgame and everything was great. I still think Civil War might be my favorite Marvel movie.
Okay, if you could Thanos snap anything out of baseball, immediately gone. I think John Lampro said A-Rod, which is, and then and then somebody else. I think somebody else said Smoltz, which is completely. So I don't want them to disappear off the face of the earth. So look, man, A-Rod lost to J-Lo, who is the best 50-year-old person to ever live on the planet.
Right, right,
Like he's got some problems that are
right,
outside of baseball too.
right. Boy, nobody should ever give me this type of power. Um, if I could, shit. I wish sometimes youth baseball could be played in a soundproof stage. I really, really do.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I think, just the majority of what gets thrown at these kids oftentimes is just like, man, this isn't the practice stage, this is the competition stage, right?
Yep.
The moment to try to solve these problems and work through these solutions and navigate this stuff, it's not now. So
Yep.
shut the fuck up
Yep.
and just let these kids,
Just let him
because
go.
if I could
Let
do
him go.
anything, I would just be like, hey, just tell your kid you love them. I mean, and really,
Exactly.
and not only
Exactly.
and
And
not only
clap. Like
and
when
not
they
only
do
do
something
that,
good, clap. Just clap. That's your job.
right, but also not when it's easy, right? Because it's easy. Club championships. I'll brag on my kid for a couple seconds. Club championships we had at the tail end of July. My kid hit like 3 tanks over the last like 3 games. It's pretty tight.
Yep.
Had a game saving, jumping in the air Fernando Tatis catch of a liner that was going into a
Yep.
gap. Would have scored 2. We would have lost the game. It's easy in that moment for me
Yep.
to just pour this love and appreciation for the person that he is, and how it resolves itself on a baseball field, right?
Yep.
Same thing I would do for my daughter. Having huge moments playing 14U baseball against boys in her first year as a travel ball
Yep.
player. after missing a year due to COVID. I can pour that adulation and appreciation and love on them in those moments. And it's really, really easy because my ego, to whatever degree it exists, is satisfied because those are my people that I made and they
Yep.
did a thing well. Right. And I feel pride and appreciation for that. But you gotta dispense that shit in a just as high of a quantity, if not more, when they struggle.
Yep.
Because that is the moment in this game that they need that reinforcement because the game is
Yep.
so fucking hard.
Yep.
And
It's
it
funny.
only gets harder.
Yeah, it's funny because Alabama loses to Texas A&M last weekend, and I watching the game, and I told my wife, I was like, watch Saban on the sideline. You see this grumpy guy all the time because they're kicking people's asses, and he's
Yep.
grumpy. He's chewing them. Watch him this game when they're down.
Yep.
He's like the biggest cheerleader ever. He's like the greatest cheerleader ever. He's over there. He's not losing his mind. And again, it's that balance. It's that balance. Again, it's easy. Like you said, it's easy when your kid goes out there and hits 3 tanks and goes and makes this play. But like, they know they did bad. Like they know they did bad. They know that. They know they sucked. They do. You don't need to beat it into them. Just put your arm around them. Go get ice cream. Tell them you love them. Put some finality to it and move on. Get back to what you need to do in order to become a better player, measurably better player.
And I don't know that loop is any more hypercritical than any sport other than baseball because the task complexity is so goddamn hard.
Oh,
You keep playing the game. Like the thing that we want is for kids to play the game, but the thing that we don't talk about enough is like how do you cultivate that sense of self that is not directly informed by whether you're up or down? You know, did you go 0 for 4 or 4 for 4? Because if you have a 12-year-old whose sense of self is like, if I go for 4, I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I'm 0 for 4, mom and dad, the car ride home is quiet, and I don't think that they fucking love me. That kid, doesn't matter how good they are, because that shit won't sustain itself if they stay in this game. So that's what I would Thanos snap.
You know, for sure. For sure. All right, dude, I'll let you go. I don't know where you're going to eat. Probably we could go into restaurants too. I'm a food junkie, so whatever.
This is just family.
I could eat Mexican like every meal of every day. I mean, I could just move to Mexico, and that's what you have for breakfast. That's what I told people. You just have tacos for breakfast, I guess.
I crushed leftover tacos for lunch.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man.
We'll do it again.
For sure. This is a ongoing podcast thing that Caleb's been on 3 times. Whatever. Like, you got interesting things to talk about.
I gotta try to come for his crown.
I'm in, yeah. All right, man.
You're the man, Chad. I appreciate you.
See you, dude.
Later.